Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited for this video, you guys. So we are now through the middle of the year already, and believe it or not, I don't know if it's because I'm very generous with my 5-star reads. I don't know if it's because my ratings are off. Maybe I just read a lot of great 5-star reads. Who knows? In today's video, we're going to be talking about all of the books that I've read so far this year that I've rated 5 stars. And yes, you've seen it. I've read 69 books this year and I've rated 29 of those books 5 stars. Like, am I not picky enough with my 5 stars? I don't know, you guys. I don't know. But most of you can agree with that these are top tier, the creme of the creme, amazing reading experience, top quality, chef's kiss, 5-star reads. So I'm so excited. Okay, just keep in mind that these are not in order from how I read them. Some of them I read digitally, meaning my Kindle. Some of them I listened to the audiobook, but I did organize them by genre. So we have contemporary romance, we have historical fiction, we have cozy fantasy, romanticities. We have a little bit of dark romance, and we also have thriller mysteries, okay? So a little bit of everything. I didn't just rate romances 5 stars. I rated a little bit of every genre because that's how I like to read, okay? Before we get into the video though, if you haven't already, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. That way you never miss another one of my videos. And also, you guys, 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I finally hit my 1K subscribers. Thank you so much. You guys have no idea what this means to me. I started this channel, I think 2 years ago or a year ago. I don't remember. I think it was last year, with the hopes that I could just talk about my books, you know, have a little community where we could just share our love for books together, not getting anything out of it, but just me ranting about how much I love books. And the fact that you guys sit and watch me rant about books and my love for books just means so much to me. You guys have no idea how special this means to me. I am just so happy. I can't thank you guys enough for sitting and sticking around and watching me rant all day long in my videos about my books, and it just makes me so happy. So thank you guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate every single one of you, and I appreciate this little tiny community that we've created with one common goal, which is just to share the love that we have for books. Let's start with fiction, because I've only read 3 so far this year that I've given 5-star reads to, and these are really popular picks, okay? So I'm sure these are on your 5-star read list as well. Let's start with Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. I mean, are we surprised that this was a 5-star read? Not really. I really enjoyed this book. I'm gonna try to keep it short, light, and sweet and not go over synopsis with you. I'm just gonna give you a little snippet of what I remember what the book is about. This is following Elizabeth Sott, and Elizabeth Sott is a chemist. She is not taken serious because this is back in the day where women were just meant to be pretty, bear children, and keep the household up. This follows her in her story, how she basically thrives and exceeds all the expectations and all the stereotypes. There is some heavy topics in here. You follow her life and the characters in it. You also follow the perspective of her dog, which I thought was so interesting and so unique in a book. You know, you don't see that a lot. And you also follow her hardships and what she goes through as a single mother, trying to make it in this man-dominated world and be taken seriously. I loved this book so much. It impacted my soul. It just shows you how brave and resilient women are and used to be back in the day. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's powerful, it's very feminist, it's just everything. It's a perfect example of what happens to a character or a woman, let's say, who gets beaten down with life and things that happen to her, goes through obstacle after obstacle, but somehow she thrives. She doesn't give up, she thrives, and she is amazing. I loved Elizabeth as a character. I think her strong personality is what made this book. I love the fact that she just never gave up, no matter how hard her life was. And just the ending was amazing, okay? Really good book. Then we have The Frozen River by Ariel Lahan. This was so good. This is a historical fiction thriller about a midwife standing up for women's rights and solving a crime. And that's all I'm gonna give you. It's so good. It's so impactful. It's so sad. It's so hard to read because the main plot of this book is based on sexual assault. But I'm telling you, this book was just fabulous in every single way. This author, the way that she writes her historical fiction novels is incredible to me. She actually does her research, and she ran across Martha Ballard in a diary or something and decided to tell her story in this fiction novel. And I thought that was done phenomenal. The author's note at the end of this book was exquisite. Like, I really enjoyed this book. It made me think, and it just made me realize how sad it is and still is that women, even now, sometimes are forgotten. Even though they've done these incredible things in past history, they're forgotten, they're just thrown to the side. And so I thought it was incredible that this author actually brought this woman's life to light. You know what I'm saying? Like, otherwise she would have been forgotten in history. Then of course we have Christina Hanna's The Women. This is her newest release. This was released, I think, last year, and I loved this. This follows Frances McGrath, who enlists herself in the Vietnam War so that she could follow her brother, who has enlisted himself as well. As a nurse, by the way. She enlists herself in the war as a nurse. In there you get to follow her and all the PTSD and everything that she goes through, all the trauma she goes through while being a woman nurse and not being taken serious during the Vietnam War. And again, it's her and the friendships she makes and her life literally spiraling downhill, and it's so hard to read about the struggles, you know. And also, these women were actually real back in the day. There are a few group of resilient women out there that actually did enlist themselves in this Vietnam War, and in this book kind of like made me feel ignorant because I had no idea. You know, I had no idea, and it's in a time where women weren't taken serious. Again, another book where women weren't taken serious. Nobody respected them, even though they served in the war, and you just get to watch that and follow her story. Kind of like go through all the emotions with her: grief, sadness, PTSD, depression. Like, it's so realistic and it's so good. It's just... if you're gonna read a historical fiction this year, make it this one because it was phenomenal. Now we're moving on to our contemporary romance. And I have a few in here, so I'm very excited. The first book I want to talk about is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is part of the Dreamland Billionaires series. I believe there's 4 books in the series, 3 books in the series. This is the very first one that follows Rowan and Zara, and it's my favorite one. Out of all the 3, it's my favorite one. This one has a little bit of everything. It's got grumpy sunshine, it's got a little bit of work romance. We have polar opposites, couldn't be different. Rowan, who's very stoic. His personality is like, you know, not bland, but he's a very grumpy man and very uptight. And then we have Zara, who's bubbly and quirky and wears a lot of colors, and they just make the perfect pairing as far as romance goes. I enjoyed it so much. Zara submits a drunken proposal talking so bad about one of their most famous theme parks in this kind of Disney World, Disneyland type of theme park that they run. And Rowan is the boss of that section of that production. And so he basically hires her to help him create a new theme park to bring in more business. And the story goes from there. And the book is so good, you guys. A man that knows that you love books and flies you to New York so that you can have a private book signing with your favorite author. I mean, come on, how is that not going to be my favorite book of this series? Then we have 2 books from the Chestnut Spring series, and that is Flawless, Powerless by Elsie Silver. These books were just so good, okay? I've read 3 so far, and these are the 2 that made it to my 5-star list. We're going to start with Flawless, and this is the first book in this series. And if you're not aware of what the Chestnut Spring series is, it's a cowboy romance series, and we're following brothers and their love interests. It's cowboys. I mean, what more can you want? The best summer reads are these, okay? If you haven't read them already, please do, because they're so good. In Flawless, we're following Rhett and Summer, and Rhett is a professional bull rider. He has a vulgar mouth. And one day he is caught on camera talking really poorly about milk, and that's not good because he is sponsored by a dairy company. So what does his agent do? He assigns his daughter Summer, who just graduated from college, as an attorney to babysit Rhett, and it's their romance. It's so good, you guys. Then we have Powerless. This one is my favorite out of the series so far. This one follows Jasper and Sloan. Jasper is a professional hockey player, and he's kind of been adopted within this family. He's not really a brother, but he's been adopted in this family due to certain circumstances that happened to him when he was a kid. And Sloan is one of the cousins who is a professional ballet dancer. It's their romance. This is a childhood friends to lovers romance, and it was done so perfect. It was done so well. I felt the emotions with this one. This one hit hard for me. Like, this one just tugged at my heart in a different level. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but seeping through the pages, you can feel their romance, their unspoken love that they have for each other. Even in the first chapters, the first scene in this book, the very first chapter already hooked me from the beginning. And I didn't have help reading this. I didn't have an audio version of this. I read it physically with my eyeballs, and the experience was so exceptional for me. I still think about this couple as of today. And I read this earlier last month or 2 months ago, I think. And it's just their love. And it's unspoken. And it's just sad, but good, but romantic, but special, everything, okay? This book was amazing. I loved it so much. One of my favorite books this year was this one. You follow them, you know they love each other, they don't admit it. Sloane has loved Jasper ever since they were kids, and it took Jasper a while to realize that. But when he does, you guys, it's gold. It's gold. Next up, we have Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. This book was so good. We're following kind of a starving artist, and her name is Sadie, who does facial portraits for a living. However, something happens to her. She gets into an accident and she develops facial blindness, which is not good because she does this for a living. She's kind of a starving artist. She can't have this happen to her. I'm not going to tell you who the love interest is. Just go in it knowing that. It's so good. This book is packed with like emotions that I never knew I had, for kind of like a soft romance, because the romance is not the center of this book. It's more about her dealing with her situation, accepting what happened to her, trying to live her life that way, trying to get used to not being able to see people's faces. And it's just heartbreaking. There's also grief in here because she's going through something in her life. There's everything. This book is just freaking amazing, okay? Romance, grief, acceptance, resilience. Like, it's just, it teaches you to go through the hardships in life and just keep your head up, and maybe you'll find romance along the way. It's so good, you guys. Then we have Ready or Not by Kara Stone. This book caught me off of left field because it's a pregnancy trope, and I didn't really think that I would like that, but this is done so well. The man in this book, he's like a cinnamon roll. He is so perfect, and he doesn't have to be. We're following Eve and Shep, and Eve has a one-night stand, and she gets pregnant. Shep is Eve's best friend's brother, but they've been best friends. This whole group has been best friends ever since they've been kids. Even though Eve is not necessarily with the father of her baby, he's a good person. He's just got issues going on in his life. Who steps in just because? Shep does. And it's their romance and the things that this man does for her that he doesn't have to do because he's just her friend. It's just so beautiful. So many small acts of service that he does helps her get through this pregnancy, and it's just beautiful. It's beautifully done. This is a slow burn, very slow burn, childhood friends to lovers, and it's just everything, you guys. Every single thing. It's also very relatable because she is pregnant, and it made me think about the times where I was going through my first and second and third trimester, and it's just beautiful. Take my word for it, it's beautiful. Okay. I don't want to show you. Okay, I don't want to show you my books, okay? I want them to be a surprise. I have one cozy mystery or cozy fantasy that I want to talk about that was just perfect for the time that I wanted to read it. And that is Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. This is the prequel to Legends and Lattes. And again, we're following Viv, who's an orc. She stumbles upon this cute little quaint beach town where there she meets another set of characters, and she helps this character right here, which I think her name is, I forget her name. Oh, Fern. She is the owner of this cute little bookstore that's basically drowning, and Viv helps her restore it and revive it, let's just say. The way that Travis Baldree writes his books, or at least his cozy fantasies, are just exquisite, okay? It's like you're transported into this cozy, quaint, cute little town with these cute characters. We have Fern, who is this cute little mouse, but she has a sailor of a mouth. Everything that comes out of her mouth, every other word that comes out of her mouth is vulgar and there's F-bombs, and it's so cute because you would not expect her to, you know, be like that. That she has this type of dog, owl type of pet, and his name is Pot Roast. The names of these characters make it that much more perfect. There's also food in here, and it's just so cute, you guys. I really enjoyed it, had a great time reading it, and I'm addicted to Travis Baldry's writing. Like, I really love his writing. When is he gonna come out with another cozy book like this, cozy fantasy? Because I can't get enough. I still love this world, and I still think about these characters every single day. Now we're gonna move on to romanticies or romance fantasies. I'm so excited. First up, we have Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I really like this one because this one is her very first paranormal romance fantasy that Ali Hazelwood has come up with, and she did not disappoint. Some people did not like this book. I absolutely loved it. I had no problems with the nodding situation. I just did it, okay? I thought it was fascinating. I enjoyed that part. This one we're following Misery and Lo. Misery is the daughter of the head council vampire society, and Lo is the head alpha male of the wolf pack in this world. In this world, vampires and wolves really don't get along. So in order for them to make peace, her father thought it was a great idea to marry his daughter off to this dangerous alpha male wolf, because that always works, right? So this is your typical enemies to lovers, paranormal fantasy romance, and it was so good. I loved it. The spicy scenes were good, and I love a stoic man, like a stiff, stubborn man, but slowly he melts for his love interest, and slowly he does these nice things to her. You can just see their love blossom and their connection grow. It was so good. This definitely had to make it in my list, okay? This book, I don't care what you guys say. I don't care if you guys say it wasn't well written. I freaking devoured it because it was so funny. This is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. I can't wait for the second book in this series to come out. I had such a freaking blast reading this. I would describe this as a cozy office fantasy romance. It's not a romantasy, it's an office work romance, and it was so good. And it's literally about a villain's assistant. It was just so funny, you guys. We're following Evie, and we're following, I forget the villain's name. He's not even mentioned until the end of the book. In the chapters where you get his point of view, he's called the villain. I think his name is Tristan. So we're following Evie and Tristan. They run into each other because Tristan, who is the villain, is running away from some guards or some armored guards because they were trying to kill him. And Evie is just minding her own business in the forest, walking on her way home. Just lost her job because she gave it to a woman in need. She basically saves his life, and he propositions her to be his assistant. It's just so funny because although he's a villain and he does kill people and murder them and torture them and have their heads hanging like chandeliers, he's the biggest softie. He's also scared of the dark, and he has this little frog right here. His name is Kinsley. Okay, he's been held captive because he's the villain's prisoner. He's very snarky. He's always trying to run away from the villain, and you see him pull up these one-word signs, very sarcastic signs talking crap to the villain, which is so funny. That little frog right there, little toad, made the book for me. I loved the back and forth. I love how quirky and socially awkward Eve can be. She's not very sarcastic. She doesn't take humor, and it's just so funny. The dynamic between these two is perfect. This book ended on a cliffhanger, so can't wait for the next one. I think it'll be released in August. Now, people say this wasn't written very well. I don't care, you guys. This was so funny. Grabbed my attention from the beginning. The humor in here is top notch. Then we have Powerless and Powerful by Lauren Roberts. Powerless is the first book in the Powerless series. It's a trilogy right now, and this is kind of like a little novella following a character in this book. This is a YA romance fantasy, and the things that this book did to me are just insane. There is no spice in this book, and it didn't need to have spice, because if you read this book and you do anything with this book, you should listen to the audiobook of this. The man, both narrators were phenomenal, but the guy that narrates Kai's voice, which is the male main character in this book, is just fucking great, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. His voice is like gold, like butter. It's so beautiful. It's so lyrical. It's just, you guys, his voice made it. This is your typical enemies to lovers romance, but real enemies to lovers, like they really don't like each other. We're following Peyton and Kai. In this world, a plague happened where everybody got affected differently. Those that didn't gain power were basically slaughtered, slaughtered, taken to get rid of. Those who did get power are obviously powerful and have gained this quality. And so in this book, we're following Peyton, who is pretending to have power, which she doesn't, in order to stay alive and live through it in the slums. Somehow one day, because she's so incredible at what she does, she gets signed up for basically a death trial, kind of like the Hunger Games, where these kids are put in this trial for survival, and they have to go through days and weeks of these different trials, basically killing off each other to see who the last person is standing. So Kai happens to be signed up in this trial, and so is Peyton, and it's their romance. The story goes from there, and it was freaking phenomenal. I can't wait for Reckless to come out, okay? I'm so excited. Then we have Powerful. It's a little novella that's based off of a character. While the trials were happening in Powerless, we follow a specific character and her love interest. And this is so sad. Get out tissues because you will be crying and sobbing, but this was phenomenal. I love this character already in Powerless, but I loved her even more, and it was just so freaking sad. The ending was just so devastating, but really a great book to read. We have a couple more to go through, guys, and I'm so excited. Okay. Next up, we have Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is the second book in the Letters of Enchantment series. It's only a duology, and this one, if not, was better than the first. We're following Roman and Iris, I think. Her name is Iris. It starts off enemies to lovers, these two people competing for the same newspaper. They fall in love, and the way they fall in love is by them writing letters to each other back and forth through a magical typewriter. That's how they communicate. During this time, all of this is happening, and there's also a war between gods. So that's all I'm going to say. The way that Rebecca Ross writes these books are just so poetically done, so beautiful, so emotional. I did not read this physical copy. I read the original copy, but I thought I'd share how beautiful this special edition is because it's one of my favorite special editions that I own, and it's also signed. But we're not talking about special editions. We're talking about how beautiful this book is. Her writing is just incredible. It's thought-provoking, it's beautiful, it's lyrical, it's poetic, it's everything. Everything you can ever want in a love story like this. The next 5 books in this would have to be the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. The only one I didn't include in here was Tower of Dawn because it followed a character that I don't really like very much. I liked him in the beginning of the books, and then towards the end, I did not like him at all. I just didn't. So I gave that book a 4, but this series is a 5-star series for me. It is hands down one of my best romantasy series that I could have ever read and had the pleasure and privilege of reading in my life. I love these characters so much. I've been holding off on the last book because I have a feeling that something horrible is going to happen to the character because of how the storyline is going. And I'm going to be very upset if that's the case. And please, no spoilers. But all I'm going to say is that, yeah, I'm going to be very upset. So I've been holding off on reading it, and it's looking at me right now. But I'm sure you've heard of the Throne of Glass series. I'm not going to go into it. I'm sure you guys know what it's about, and we're following Helena Sardathian, and she was enslaved when she was 18, and this is her story. And she is a badass. There's feminine rage. She is amazing. There's beautiful romances throughout every single book. Every character gets a love interest. There's fae. There's an amazing magical system. There is horrific monsters that just make the books even better. There's manipulation in the best way ever, meaning you will hate characters in the beginning of the book and then you will love them, kind of like Akatar as well. Sarah J. Maas just can't do any wrong. Every single thing I've read from her, I've loved, and this is no different. Okay, now we're moving on to, I got some dark romances in here, and finally mystery and thrillers. So the first book is Neon Gods by Katie Robert. This is the first book in the Olympian Gods series, I think it's called. And this is a set of, I don't even know how many books there is, like 8 or 9 or something crazy like that. It's Greek mythology retellings, but make them dark and spicy. I've read 2 so far. I'm still like making my way down the books, but this one is a retelling of Hades and Persephone. And my first, obviously the first book in the series, and it hooked me. It's so good. I love this couple. I love Hades. Never thought I would because, you know, in fairy tales, you're not supposed to like Hades, but he is the most romantic man that I have read in some of these books. He is everything. He makes the book. Just the things that he does for Persephone, how he is like basically on his knees to just pleasure her in every single way. Just the thoughtful things that he does for her are just so romantic in the best way. So romantic. But yeah, I'm not going to say much about this book. I really loved it. You guys should give it a shot. Next up, we have The Cat and Mouse Duet by H.D. Carlton, Haunting and Hunting Adeline. And my first really heavy dark romance. People put this on their like last book to read if you're gonna start dabbling in dark romance. Nope, I decided to just jump right into the classics, you know, why not? This one we're following Zaid and Adeline. Adeline is a famous author, and Zaid sees her one day in a book signing at a store and decides to stalk her because he is psychotically obsessed with her. So this is a dark stalker romance and following their story, and there's a lot of triggers in here. You know, there's just check up your trigger warnings. There's human trafficking. There's a lot of assault in here. There's non-con, which I didn't mind the non-con, okay? I just, call me weirdo, but I didn't mind it. I thought it was fine. At least with Adeline and Zaid. Everything else was kind of horrific. But there's just so many good things that happen in this book despite what the book is mainly about, like what kind of organization Zaid is trying to take down. You can't help but realize that this man is so psychotic, insane, just crazy for her. It makes you sick to your stomach because you're not supposed to enjoy that, but you do because he's just everything. He makes these books so enjoyable. His unhinged characteristic is just the best, you guys. I really enjoyed him. The experience that I got with these books was just so dang good. I want to get a tattoo based on this series. I loved it that much. Speaking of this series, I also read, before I started these two books, which you should, I read Satan's Affair, which we're following Sibby, and we love Sibby. She's very crazy, but we love her. We're following her story and her love interests. And that's all I'm going to say about her story because it is a short novella, but if you're going to jump into the cat and mouse duet, my suggestion is you jump and read Sibby's story first before you get into these books, because you will appreciate her more as a character and you will fall in love with her story, even though it's sick and twisted and just freaking amazing, better than if you just jumped into these and did not read her story. In Satan's Affair, we're following Sibby and obviously her henchmen. There's like 5 henchmen. She is part of a creepy carnival. She has this gift where she can sniff out the pedophiles, the rapists, the bad people, and she just, when the carnival closes, her and her henchmen make them pay. And that's all I'm going to say about that book. That book was so good. Along with that one, after I read this duet and read that one, I then jumped into Where's Molly, which is another spin-off novella based on a character that's mentioned in these two books. And it's following Molly before she got abducted and after she got abducted in her romance. And it's also sick and twisted, but good in the best way ever. This whole universe, as dark as it is, the romances in it are just top notch for me. We are down to our last 4 books, I believe. There's one that I don't have a... Oh wait, just kidding. I have one more to share with you as far as a dark romance goes. And that is No Place to Hide by Harper Ashley and Ren Hawthorne. This is another short and sweet Halloween themed novella. It takes place in October during the Halloween season. It's literally about a creepy carnival. Your perfect, uptight, straight A student girl who meets one of the workers that works in the carnival, and things get very unhinged once she decides to have a night with him. It was so good. It was just what I was wanting and craving after reading my dark romances. I wanted to read something more like that, but short and sweet. The scenes in this book were like unhinged, but in the best way ever. There's a scene where he's wearing a mask and it's him chasing her around the carnival, and you guys, it was so good. My reading experience for this little novella was just amazing. I would recommend it if you want something that gets to the point, smutty, with kinks in it, and like just off the wall and hinge things that happen, but it's also set in the fall, in the Halloween season. You will love that book so much. Okay, now we're gonna get into the last set of books here that I have in front of me, and that is your thriller mystery books. First one I want to talk about was I still don't own this book, but I need to own it. I keep telling myself I need to buy it and I haven't bought it yet. And that is All the Dangerous Things by Stacey Willingham. And this one is about a mother who lost her 1-year-old son. He gets taken in the middle of the night, and that's basically what the story's about. She hasn't slept. She has some kind of sleeping disorder where hasn't fully slept because she's trying to figure out what happened to her son. The police aren't taking it serious after so many months or a year has passed. They just feel like it's a cold case and there were no leads. And so it's her struggling through the fact of like, what happened to my son while I was sleeping? How could I have not, as a mother, instinctively felt that my son was being taken? And you see her going through this spiral of emotions where she's blaming herself because she's like, what happened to my son? You know, did I do something to my son? There's a point where she questions her sanity because she has no idea what really went down on the day that her son was missing. And you just go through the emotions, the roller coaster of emotions that this woman has dealing with the fact that she lost her son. And this book just hit me emotionally in a different level because it's a mother trying to find her lost son, and you don't know if he's dead, you don't know what happened to him, you don't know who took him, and her questioning herself and trying to step back and replay the situation over and over in her head. And it's just so heartbreaking to see and feel and watch. As a mother myself, like that would be the most heartbreaking thing ever. And I think this is why I gave this book a 5, was because even though this has not happened to me, it's relatable in a sense of her being a mother, you know, trying to kind of blame herself for not watching her son that night, or like going through the spiral of emotions that you go through as a mother, regardless if you're a new mother or, you know, a mother of how many kids you have. Like those emotions and feelings as mothers in general, we all go through. Like trying to be the best mom we can and sometimes feeling like we are not, and criticizing ourselves to the point where like we feel like bad moms at some point. So that to me was very relatable, and it was just everything. That book was just so good. Then we have another book like that, which is The Push by Ashley Audren. Another book where the mom is basically questioning her sanity, and it's just freaking insane, scary. You guys, this book is, if you're a brand new mom, I would not recommend. This is a book about Blythe, who never wanted kids in the first place because she had gone through some things in her past, never felt the motherly love that you should, the nurture that you should when having a mom. Therefore, she never wanted kids, but her husband did. And so she gives her husband a daughter. For some reason, her and her daughter don't connect. There's something off about her daughter, but she just doesn't want to see it. You know, she becomes crazy with all these thoughts and feels bad that she feels this way about her daughter. And then they have a son, and everything is different when she has a son because she connects with him, and he's just the perfect baby boy ever. The story goes from there. I'm not going to say much. This book is unhinged. It's crazy. It's psychotic. It's disturbing. It's scary as a mom, you know, and I'll just leave it at that. But it was so good. Then we have The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This was a fun ride for me. This was so good. It was kind of slow paced, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. This one we're following Lenora and Kit, and Lenora lives in this creepy house in the middle of nowhere on top of a cliff. Lenora had something happen to her and her family where everybody was murdered, brutally murdered, except for her. She's the one survivor, and she was blamed for the murder, but the police didn't really have enough on her to convict her. So she has stayed for some reason in this creepy house. Fast forward to, I don't know how many years later, maybe 40 years later or something like that. Lenora needs at-home care. So she hires Kit, who is her home care nurse, to take care of her. And one day Lenora tells Kit, I need you to help me write my story, and you will know what exactly happened in this house. You will know my side of the story. And so the story goes from there, and it's unhinged. It's crazy. I didn't guess anything. I was like shook by all the reveals and all the plot twists, and it was such a fun time. And the last book on this list would have to be None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. This was so good. And in this one, we're following two women that meet under very unique circumstances. They meet on their 40th birthday. They're at a restaurant and they bump into each other, and they realize that they're both turning 40 that year. And so this friendship blossoms. And I'm really not going to tell you much about anything because even though this is a little predictable, it was done so well. You get to the point where you don't know who's telling the truth. Like you don't know whose side you should be on. Both of the characters seem very unreliable, and it's so good. The thing that makes this book so interesting is that Alex is a famous podcaster, and Josie has been following Alex's podcast for a long time. Like, it's her ritual to watch and listen to her podcast every single day or every time it's aired. In Alex's podcast, she is basically interviewing and following women and talking about women who have struggled in their lives and have now built a business, or women that have been physically abused by men in their lives and have now thrived. And so because of this, Josie takes the opportunity to ask Alex if she can, you know, interview her and tell her her life story in her podcast. And so the friendship goes from there and the story goes from there. This book is, again, like, you will not know who is telling the truth. You will be surprised on the things that happen. It's sick, it's twisted, it's toxic, but it's so good. It kept me on the edge of my seat. It was entertaining. I listened to it on audio as well. I had a really great time reading this one. It was the best thing ever. I think this is one of the first books I've read in the beginning of this year, and I felt like, dang, I started the year off right with a bang by reading this book. It was so entertaining and toxic and everything. It was everything that you want in a thriller. You know, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's like fast paced. You're just following these characters and you're inside their heads, and sometimes you don't want to be because it's sick and twisted, and it's just, that's all I'm gonna say. It was fun. So there you have it, you guys. Those are my 29 books that I gave 5 stars to, and I enjoyed. Just looking and reflecting and seeing all these books in front of me makes me feel so blessed and grateful that I have had this many 5-star reads. Again, I don't think that I'm an easy 5-star rater. Like, I think I was very reasonable with these books, and most of you can agree that these books are 5 stars. And if you haven't read some of these, hopefully you find new ones that you can add onto your TBR. Maybe they'll become one of your 5-star reads too. Let me know so far, what is the first book you've read this year that you gave a 5-star to that just impacted you in that way? I would love to know your thoughts. So that's it. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and I will catch you on my next one. Bye!